Hello, Archie Dunlop here with Talking Astrology with Archie on Tuesday, January the 9th, 2024. Today I want to return one more time to the issue of Claudine Gay, the former, I think she's gone now, has she resigned yet? I know she's resigned, but has she actually left her post? I don't know. Anyway, the president of Harvard, or maybe the former president of Harvard, and I wanted to consider two of the people that helped bring her down. One of those people was Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. If you remember, that was that famous exchange in Congress where Elise Stefanik was trying to get Claudine Gay to say that calling for the genocide of Jews was sort of always unacceptable, and that was really what led to Claudine Gay's downfall. I also want to look at the horoscope of Christopher Rufo. Christopher Rufo is this conservative activist. I think he says he's very active against wokeism, and he was the one that really focused on Claudine Gay's plagiarism. And he played a big role in undermining her and making her position as president of Harvard untenable. So what I wanted to do is look at the horoscopes of these two people, because there are some interesting links that they have, not least the fact they're both born in 1984. Elise Stefanik was born on July the 2nd, 1984, and Christopher Rufo was born on August the 26th, 1984. Now, I know that's a couple of months apart, but the slower moving planets will not move a great deal in a couple of months. So their outer planets will actually be in very similar positions, and so I want to specifically focus on those and look at how they might have had an impact on Claudine Gay. I don't think I'm going to cover Claudine Gay again, so this is my third look at the Claudine Gay affair, and I'm assuming that it's probably going to be my last look at it. Okay, so before I do that, I want to look at the astrology and the I Ching for today, which is Tuesday, it's Tuesday, January the 9th, 2024. So let's look at the chart. Now, I'm not promising that anything major is happening today. If you looked at my video for yesterday, you might notice that my forecasts of the star signs were quite brief. Reason being, I didn't really see that yesterday, Monday the 8th, a great deal was going on. I think there's a bit more going on today, but I'm not necessarily promising you fireworks. So this is a chart. You can see that the moon remains in Sagittarius. Now, yesterday, the moon was conjunct Venus, and today it's conjunct Neptune. Sorry, it's conjunct Mercury. I'm getting quite confused today, aren't I? Yes. Well, if you've got Mercury square Neptune, that does represent quite a lot of confusion. And the moon is square Neptune. So perhaps that's why I'm getting confused. But the moon is conjunct Mercury today. So that puts a big emphasis on communication. I mean, the moon and Mercury are the two communication planets. The moon is more about sort of emotional communication. Mercury is more about verbal communication. And together, in Sagittarius, it's very communicative. There's a lot to say and there is a lot to express. It's easy to express. The words just come out. We can't help ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean to say that we're going to be making any sense. I mean, Mercury is in Sagittarius. Mercury doesn't work very well in Sagittarius. Mercury rules Gemini. In Sagittarius, it's in its detriment. And matters aren't helped by the fact that Mercury is making a square to Neptune. And the moon is also making a square to Neptune. So in a way, that moon conjunct Mercury is triggering Mercury's square to Neptune. So that raises a possibility of complete confusion, people getting their facts wrong, and people saying things that they almost immediately regret. So we do have to be careful. We might have something on our mind and we might be desperate to express it. You know how it is. There's something you want to say. You just can't help it. You've got to say it. And you know that it's probably the wrong thing to say, but you just feel you have to say it. And then you say it, and you know straight away that you shouldn't have said it. Even if people don't notice, you still regret it. So I think we have to be careful. There are things we really shouldn't be saying. Because at the very least they're going to make us feel uncomfortable, and they may make other people feel uncomfortable as well. And with Mercury square Neptune, we do have to be careful about deception. People are going to be saying a load of stuff, and a lot of it is just going to be false. It's going to be misleading. And if someone sounds very persuasive, particularly if they're trying to sell us something, then our alarm bell should be ringing straight away. That is Mercury square Neptune. I mean, okay, you might say Mercury square Neptune is about psychic ability, perhaps. Yeah, we might get some psychic flashes about what's happening, but are we going to actually be able to make sense of those psychic flashes? We might completely misinterpret them. Even if there is something psychic going on, even if our telepathy is working, it's one thing to pick something up in a psychic way, but it's another thing to actually process the information correctly. And at the same time as these conjunctions with these squares with Neptune involving the Moon and Mercury, we have got the Sun making a semi-square to Saturn. So there is the Sun, 1855 Capricorn at noon in New York. There's Saturn at 4-3 Pisces. The Sun and Saturn are actually pretty much at 45 degree angle to one another. This is actually the chart which I did show you a couple of days ago. This is set for Westminster in England. This is a precise moment that the Sun is 45 degrees away from Saturn. So you can see there's Sun at 19.4 Capricorn, Saturn at 4.4 Pisces. And so London time, that happens this evening at around 8:38 p.m. So if you're in London, this evening, we've got to watch out for that Sun semi-square Saturn. If you're in Los Angeles, that would be around lunchtime. If you're in New York, sort of middle of the afternoon. So there is this Sun square Saturn, Sun semi-square Saturn aspect today. It's not just going to be operational at the exact time it forms. I think for all of us, for all of the whole day, we're going to feel this Sun semi-square Saturn. So how do we interpret it? Well, the Sun is about how we want to establish ourselves. The Sun is, it is ourselves, but it's semi-square Saturn. Saturn is a planet of responsibility, of hard work, of restriction. And so I think many of us are going to feel that we can't properly express ourselves. We'd like to express ourselves. We'd like to, do what we want. But it's going to be really hard work. I think I think part of the problem is going to be that, the sun is in Capricorn, so many of us are going to try to be very sensible and down to earth and just get things done. But Saturn in Pisces, Saturn is about emotions that perhaps are stuck. As I was saying very recently, Saturn in Pisces can be associated with the tarot card Eight of Cups, indolence. Now, you don't normally... Now, that's, by the way, that's the Aleister Crowley Book of Thoth pack. Saturn in Pisces, but he associates it with indolence. Now, that might seem a bit strange. Saturn is supposed to be a hardworking planet, so how can you possibly associate Saturn in Pisces with indolence? I think we have to work out what that actually means, because that tarot card, it shows these muddy pools, and I think it's like emotion that has just become stagnant. It might appear to be indolence, people doing nothing, but what's actually going on in the inside is just people getting caught on their own feelings. They're just focusing on their own feelings. They can't really think about anything else, and they're just getting stuck. And that's the thing with laziness. People are all people like to accuse each other of laziness, but I don't buy that accusation. I remember I had this job when I was 17. Was I 17? I had it for 2 days, and I had really bad asthma because I was cleaning out all this hay, and I had the worst asthma attack of my life. I mean, any much worse than I would have ended up in hospital. And I remember this farmer coming up to me, "What are you standing around doing nothing?" I might have seemed quite lazy to him, but in fact I was almost dying. So when you see people being lazy, you do need to consider why they're being lazy. And so the laziness in this case, Saturn in Pisces, is about just getting completely fixated on one's feelings. So part of a reason why it may be difficult to get anything done today is because certain people are fixated on their inner feelings, and they can't really just snap out of it. No, I mean, why should they snap out of it? I don't like that word, snap out of it. It's just a bit too dismissive. Yeah, watch out for that. And this Sun Saturn semi square, if you look at the midpoints it's on, it's Saturn is on the Hades Zeus midpoint. Sort of Hades is about death and destruction and garbage, and Zeus is about massive power. And so I think that some people are just going to be just quite nasty today, not just indolent, not just obsessed about their feelings, but actually quite nasty, and they may be actually abusing their power, particularly perhaps in a working environment. So do be aware of that. Now, I've been a bit negative about what's going on today. However, I should point out that Venus is aspecting the Jupiter node midpoint. It's also aspecting the Apollon node midpoint. And the Apollon is a hypothetical planet connected with creativity and art and music, as well as business. And so, Venus hitting those two midpoints, it provides a different view of the day. It shows that if we look for the positive, if we try to associate with people who are optimistic, talented, creative, then we can have a great time. And those people are around. So, yes, there are some people who are sort of fixated on their feelings, being hyper emotional, but you don't necessarily need to deal with them. Okay, you might feel you're a psychotherapist and you can help, but maybe that's something you want to do, but maybe that's something you must do. It depends on the situation. But there are other people who are optimistic, who are forward-thinking, who are also very clever. very talented. And so maybe we should be seeking out those kinds of people. So that's the broad picture today. And so what I want to do now is do my star sign forecasts for all the 12 signs. And these forecasts are for today, which is Tuesday, January the 9th, 2024. Aries. Well, Aries, you're in a strange mood in some respects. I think you might have a kind of unusual interests. You might be putting your energy into some quite strange places. Now, it might not be immediately apparent to the outsider, but I think you might be. I think that sort of many Arians are sort of dwelling on things like death and disintegration and perhaps what's it all about. So there is that thoughtfulness. I suppose it's thoughtfulness that some Aries might be feeling, but it might get out of control. So Aries, I think you need to not focus so much on existential issues, and perhaps try a little bit harder to be optimistic. And it is quite possible. After all, there's still a lot of energy, a lot of planets. You've still got Moon, Mercury, Venus in Sagittarius, which is a fire sign like Aries, and I think that this build-up in Sagittarius can hopefully encourage you to look beyond existential issues of life and death and the purposeless futility of it all, and to perhaps to start to tune into something sort of above yourself, not below yourself. Look upwards and think about all the possibilities. You don't have to keep doing what you're doing in the same old way. You can find new ways of expressing yourself. So perhaps what you need to do is avoid anything that is too much, that has too much sameness to it. Sameness is not your friend today. Familiarity is not your friend. You want to do something that is different. You want to interact with people who are different, who can show you a new view of the world. Yes, it is possible. And, Aries, you need excitement. And, if you can get excitement, and also sort of enlightenment, meeting interesting people, as I've said, who can show you a new view of the world, then you can stop thinking about these sort of existential issues. What is the purpose of it? Worrying about something, some weird fear that you might be inclined to fixate on. So Aries, I think you have to make a choice. You have to, choose the path of darkness, the path of going inside yourself with no real and obvious escape route, or looking out, looking beyond yourself and looking at all the opportunities that actually do exist all around you. Taurus. It's a day when there are certainly things that need to be done, like yesterday. I mean, yesterday I think there were obligations that really couldn't be avoided. And I think some of those observations, they still exist. They still have to be dealt with, at least until the late afternoon. I mean, it depends where you are. And it may not be as tedious as you thought, um, and at the same time, you need to consider the people around you, because Venus is a ruler of Taurus, and so Venus, which is your ruling planet, is it's aspecting the Jupiter node midpoint. So the Jupiter node midpoint is about fortunate contacts, and so you do have the opportunity to make some very fortunate contacts today. You just have to make sure that you've completed whatever obligations need to be done. There are expectations on you. You might have made promises that you're going to do something by a particular time, in which case you better make sure that you do it. That's going to be really important. But once you've fulfilled your obligations, then you're gonna have a lot of freedom, and you can really enjoy other people's company. Now, if you are an American Taurus and you're in the Americas, then you should find that by the late afternoon, things do start to change. It's going to be less about obligation. It's going to be more about finding interesting things to do, perhaps of a creative nature or even a spiritual and inspirational nature, and perhaps being able to mix with new people who are very forward thinking but are actually at the same time very down to earth. They might have really good ideas, perhaps about how to make money, but kind of quite original ideas. So if someone suggests a course of action that sounds a bit crazy, don't dismiss it out of hand, because there might be the germ of a brilliant idea there. Okay, you're going to have to work on it, make sure that it really is practical, but there is opportunity there. And in general, Taurus, I think the last part of the day is going to be better than the first part of the day. Gemini, it's another day when you do have to consider other people. Other people do matter. You can't really make your own decisions entirely. You do have to consider how other people are going to respond. Now, that doesn't mean to say that you have to always follow other people's lead. I mean, Gemini, you've got a brain, haven't you? You've got a sense of judgment, and you do need to listen to your judgment, especially today, because Mercury, which is your ruling planet, Mercury rules Gemini, is square Neptune, and that could make you very confused, especially when you are surrounded by other people. Other people may be unavoidable, but that doesn't mean that they are particularly helpful. They could lead you completely astray. So you do have to be careful, and you might be wondering, why would I suggest that you mix with other people? Why would I suggest that? Because I'm saying it's going to happen anyway. I'm saying that you can't avoid the social dimension. You can't really run away from it. But at the same time, the social dimension could be dangerous. So you just have to be cautious. You don't want people to lead you astray. And if anyone makes a suggestion or encourages a course of action today, then you need to analyze it very carefully. And if in doubt, just don't do it. There are going to be other temptations with Mercury square Neptune. Temptations to do things which you later regret. And again, these temptations may be inspired by other people who are leading you astray. So a bit of discipline is definitely required. So really, that's the day. I think the main aspect today, the most important thing going on today, is Mercury square Neptune. It can be misleading. The only positive thing to say about Mercury square Neptune is it is quite spiritual, and you might pick some stuff up on some emotional wavelength that only you have access to, and the information you pick up could actually be extremely useful. Cancer. It's a day when you are feeling that you don't really want to be bothered, but at the same time, you know that you must be bothered. I mean, most Cancerians do have a strong sense of responsibility, and you know that if you don't look after something, then no one else is going to do it. So you might be in a situation where perhaps there's no one else around. There's no one else around to perform perhaps an essential task, perhaps at work, for example. And unfortunately, you just have to go and do it. Now, I'm not saying that you have to martyr yourself, because the universe makes sure that everything is kind of balanced out, and by being the person to make sure everything runs smoothly, you are attracting good energy, and it's very likely that the people who matter will notice what you're doing. Notice what you're doing, and I should also say there's absolutely no need to suffer in silence, to keep your feelings to yourself, because right now the moon, which is your ruler, is conjunct Mercury, so you have got lots of things to say. You are going to keep everyone informed about what's on your mind, and in the process you might be quite tactless. I don't think you're in the mood really for sparing people's feelings. You probably take the view that it's important that everyone knows the truth. Now, when people know the truth, they might not be happy about it. They might even want to shoot the messenger. But Cancer, you know that it's important that everyone knows. Ignorance is not bliss. At least today, it's not. And so, by keeping everyone informed and being honest about what's on your mind, being honest about what's troubling you, I think in the end you will be appreciated and respected. Now, if you're in the Americas, then late in the day there is going to be a change of emphasis. This is because the moon will change sign. The moon will change sign from Sagittarius to Capricorn. And the moment the moon changes sign from Sagittarius to Capricorn, there's going to be less emphasis on responsibility and more emphasis on how you deal with other people, especially on a one-to-one level. And there are certainly people to deal with. Having said that, right at the end of the day, the moon does start making a conjunction to Mars, if you're in the Americas. And so some Cancers in America towards the end of the day might just get involved in an argument. It's an argument where you're absolutely sure you're right and the other person is in the wrong. You're absolutely sure about that. I'm not going to give you any advice. I mean, that's what you're moving into. Is that what you want? if that's what you want, fine. Maybe you are in the right. Um, but do consider the possibility that you're overreacting. Okay, that's what I'm going to say for Cancer. And now I'm going to move to Leo. Leo, it is another day when you are able to really concentrate on what you're good at. You are talented, and the world does need to see what you're good at. But just because you're good at something, just because something is quite easy, at least on a superficial level, doesn't mean that you don't have to put in some effort. And this is especially the case because today the Sun, which is your ruler, is semi-square Saturn. So Sun semi-square Saturn gives us the idea of discipline, hard work, and perhaps frustration. There are certain things which might be really difficult, and there may be a temptation to give up. But I'm not convinced that that's the right thing to do. I think that there is a task that really needs your attention, and if you put in the effort, then you're going to make progress. It's not going to be easy. You might wonder, why are you doing what you're doing? It might feel like a waste of time. It might feel exhausting. But if you keep going, if you keep pushing, then I think you could get some, you could get some excellent results. And while you're doing all this, it's important to talk. Talk to people, because the things you say are going to sound really interesting. I mean, you don't have to make an effort. It's just you're interesting. And perhaps the reason you're interesting is because you're encouraging other people to talk. Conversation is a great way of passing time. Conversation about exciting subjects, conversation that it may not be going anywhere, it might not even lead to any conclusions, but conversation can really help you feel more alive, and it can give you the reputation of being an interesting person. So bear that in mind. Virgo, it's a day when you certainly have opinions, and this is especially when you're talking to people that you really know well. When you're, for example, talking to your family or to close friends, you're not going to shut up. Because as far as you're concerned, there are things to be said, and you don't really care who you offend. I mean, you take the view that if you know someone well, and if someone knows you well, then really anything goes. You can really say what you like because your heart is in the right place. And I think that is the key point. Your heart is in the right place. And the opinions you express are almost certainly correct, and hopefully they will be taken in the spirit in which they're meant. Now, some people are going to be offended by what you say because they don't like criticism. But you really have to ask yourself, is that your problem? If someone doesn't like criticism, do you really need to bother with them? Because, criticism is the way we progress. Sometimes, we just don't know that we're doing something wrong, so we carry on repeating the same old mistake until a Virgo like you sort of appears from nowhere and just tells us what we're doing wrong. We might get upset when Virgos tell us that we're messing it all up, but if we take the advice as it's meant, and we act on this advice, then everyone should be happy in the end. Now, towards the end of the day, you can change your approach somewhat. So if you are a Gemini in the Americas, then probably around approximately 6 p.m. or even earlier. In fact, 3 in the afternoon if you're on the West Coast. So late afternoon, early evening. If you're in the Americas, then you are going to experience a change. You're going to be less critical, and I think you're going to find it easier to relax. At the same time, some Virgos might actually realize that something you do as a hobby, something you just think is just some general interest that is of no practical value, actually could be very important, could actually help make you money. So consider all the things you enjoy doing, particularly your hobbies, whatever it is, and consider the possibility that it can make you money, but it might even be the basis for a new job, self-employment, a new business, not necessarily a full-time business, but another way in which you can bring in some money. So Virgo, don't doubt yourself. I mean, I know that this is something Virgos sometimes do. Virgos just ask too many questions, and they think, what is the point, and can I do this, and those kind of questions. And it can drive you crazy. It can drive you to a standstill. That's not what we need to do today. You need to be optimistic and consider what can be done. And that's especially if you're in the Americas. If you're in Western Europe, then I think sort of late in the evening today, if you're awake, you might get some important inspiration. So watch out for that. Libra, you are really in the center of things. You absolutely know what's going on. You understand the complex dynamics of your social life, and you know how to behave, and you also know what opportunities are available, and I think some very important opportunities are available. Reason being that Venus, which is the ruler of Virgo, is on the Jupiter node midpoint, and it's also on the Apollon node midpoint. Because we can look at the midpoint sort of planet is on, and then that can feed back to the sign that it rules. So with Venus on your Jupiter node midpoint, you can be a real Libran. Librans, when they're on best form, they are socializing, they're networking, they're meeting lots of different people, they are able to adjust their behavior to fit particular social scenes. And this is something you can really do today, and you can do it extremely well. So don't doubt yourself. And if you look for new contacts, you can certainly find them. And I think you can find people who can really be very lucky for you, and who can also put you in the way of opportunities, perhaps of a business or creative nature. If you're a Libran musician, then maybe new opportunities to perform, perhaps. New business opportunities as well. People able to talk about business, work out what needs to be done, and have some really amazing entrepreneurial ideas. On the downside, if you get too close to people, maybe, existing partners even, uh, you might find something that you're not fully prepared for. Now, I don't want to be over dramatic, but it does seem that some of the people close to you are in quite a strange frame of mind. They're having weird thoughts. They have this sort of pessimism and this negativity about the future. Now, I don't want to overstate it. It's almost certainly a sort of a passing phase, but you do need to be aware of it, because if someone has got a lot of negativity, that could feed back on you. And so you have to decide, if you've got people who are negative, if you've got people who have strange thoughts, maybe you should stay away from them. Or maybe you should engage with them, and perhaps convince them that their thoughts are going in the wrong direction, and perhaps you can convince them that they need to take a more down-to-earth and positive approach to their prospects for the future. Scorpio. It is a good time for Scorpios in general. As I've been saying for the last few days, Mars, your ruler, is in Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So overall, you are in a very strong position. But Mars's movement through Capricorn will present sort of different phases and different challenges. And today there's some danger that you direct your energy into the wrong areas. You might, for example, get really involved with your deeper thoughts and your deeper fears and your deeper fantasies, and you might move into territory that really isn't very helpful, isn't very constructive. You become too inward looking, and you start to get wrapped up in your own negativity. So beware of that trend, Scorpio. You've got to think about the positives. That's really important. And perhaps what you need to do is you need to find people to talk to. If you're on your own, trying to make your own decisions, you are almost trying to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps, whatever. It can't be done. You cannot lift yourself up. You need other people around to lift you up. And so that's perhaps something what you need to do. You need to find people who are on your wavelength, but who also have a certain minimum level of optimism, because you do need these kinds of people. Now, if you've been listening to some of the star signs I've been talking about recently, for example, I've just talked about Libra, and I said that Libra it's looking good for Libra because Venus is on the Jupiter node midpoint. That's fortunate contacts. But you see, Venus in the Scorpio horoscope represents the other person, represents a partner. I know Venus is a female planet, but even if you're in a female horoscope, Venus can represent a male or female partner. It needn't be gender specific in that situation. And yeah, Venus is in a great position, and so Venus might be about this kind of people you can attract, people who are optimistic, people who can make it their business to make you feel good about yourself. So don't necessarily restrict yourself to one group of people. There are people out there who you need to get in touch with, who are very optimistic, and they can just encourage you to be sort of forward thinking and not dwell too excessively on your own feelings. Sagittarius. it's another day when there's this build up in your star sign. We had it yesterday, and again today. We have got 3 planets in your star sign. We've got the moon in Sagittarius. We've got Mercury in Sagittarius, and we've got Venus in Sagittarius. So, yes, you can be the life and soul of a party. You can brighten things up. You can cheer people up. So that's great. But you do have to be aware that the moon and Mercury, while moving through the last degrees of your star sign, are making a square aspect to Neptune. So there's something out there that could confuse you. Or it may be there are people you're dealing with who are confused, and their confusion can be projected on you, and you could get even more confused. So you need to watch out for that. And at the same time, family members, who you should be relying on to provide stability may actually make things worse. So I would today be a bit cautious when dealing with your family. Yes, you've got to deal with your family. I mean, that's essential, but that doesn't mean to say that your family are always going to be useful. And today they really might lead you astray. They might say things that you don't understand, and because you don't understand, you might get the wrong impression, or it's possible that you say things and they don't understand it, and that creates further misunderstandings, and that just creates a big problem. So Sagittarius, I think you need to be very aware of that. Very aware of that possibility. Yeah, some of the people close to you are very confused, and you don't want to get drawn into their confusion and just become another victim of this rather contagious confusion. Well, it could be the confusion today with this Mercury square Neptune. Yeah, it could be contagious. One person is confused, they confuse another person, and then in the end, everyone is confused. So Sagittarius, you need to use your strengths. Look at the big picture. That's what Sagittarians are good at, looking at the big picture. Then you can look at the big picture and you can see what needs to be done. Capricorn. For most of the day, I would have said that you are not particularly going to be in the mood for socializing. I think you're going to be happiest when you're alone for most of the day, or at least undisturbed, because I think you're going to take the view that's not just where you're happiest, but it's also where you're most useful. You might feel that, if you're having to deal with other people in a group, in a team, your abilities are just not being properly exercised, and that's fine. I think you need to respect that part of yourself. But if you are in the Americas, then this evening, perhaps late this afternoon, things will change. Now, this is because the moon is moving into your star sign. So the moon has been in Sagittarius for the last couple of days, and this evening it's moving into your star sign. By the way, that really is about people in the Americas. Yeah, if you're in Western Europe, the moon might move into your star sign right at the end of the day, when there's probably about an hour left, if that. So I'm really talking about Capricorns in America. So with the moon in your star sign, you're gonna feel it. There's going to be a sudden sense of clarity and also dynamism, because the moment the moon goes into Capricorn, it starts making a conjunction to Mars, and that Moon-Mars conjunction in Capricorn is going to be very energizing, and it's going to encourage you to start to make plans, to start to assert yourself, and at the same time, you're not going to suffer fools gladly. If anyone is in your way or says something you disagree with, you will let them know. So yes, that's Moon conjunct Mars. Could be a problem. Watch out for nighttime arguments if you're a Capricorn. But I'm sure you'll manage to avoid the problem. I mean, after all, you're a sensible Capricorn. You're going to look at the situation you're in and you're going to act accordingly. Aquarius. Overall, I think you're going to be feeling fairly confident most of the day. You will have a clear sense of where you're going, and a clear sense also what you want, the way things should be. But when it comes to dealing with other people, there could be a few problems. Reason being is that the Sun and Saturn are exactly 45 degrees apart. Now, Saturn is your ruling planet. I know some people say that Aquarius is a ruler of, Uranus is a ruler of Aquarius. Well, it's not. Saturn is a ruler of Aquarius. And the ruler of Aquarius's opposite sign of Leo is the Sun. So these two planets, Sun and Saturn, are 45 degrees apart. What does that mean? I think that could mean that relationships may be under a certain amount of stress. So if you're in a situation where you're dealing with people one-to-one, then you and the other person might have different ways of looking at the world. And that's even the case, if you've been married to someone for 40 years, that still might be the case. So agreement should not be taken for granted. However well you know someone, there could well be a difference of opinion, and you need to prepare for that. Now, one way of preparing for that is to avoid one-to-one situations. You either don't be sociable, or you stick to sort of groups, crowds, but you don't want to be in a situation where it's you and the other person and nothing else, because with the Sun square Saturn, semi-square Saturn, if you talk, sooner or later, I think you're going to start to clash. Okay, if you and your partner are very, very responsible, then maybe the Sun semi-square Saturn might not be such a problem, because at its best, the Sun semi-square Saturn is about something very constructive, getting down to it and sorting things out. But I think in most cases not. Remember also what I said about Saturn in Pisces having an emotional content. Someone is being too emotional. Now, I understand Aquarius has a reputation for being one of the least emotional signs of the zodiac, and you perhaps pride yourself on your objectivity. But today, you do have strong feelings. You have feelings about the way things should be. If something has annoyed you, you're keeping that feeling to yourself, and there's a load of emotion that you may be keeping tight control over, and that's not supposed to happen, is it? You're supposed to be an Aquarius, but every sign has got emotion. There's no such thing as a sign that has no emotion. Of course not. You're an Aquarius, yes, rational air sign, but you're an emotional being. And today, Aquarius, your emotions may actually mess things up. Reason being, because you're not communicating them properly, you're keeping them to yourself. And that's just causing confusion, and the other person is feeling that confusion, and that's not at all satisfactory. So, Aquarius, I would suggest that you try to sort of let go of your emotions, that you don't dwell on them. I think that could be quite important. Pisces. I think Pisces, it's probably going to be a useful day, particularly if you're working. I said yesterday that you've got these three planets, Mercury, Moon, Venus, in a part of your chart connected with business and career. And that's great. I think you're able to have a high profile. You're able to get recognized. You're able to get appreciated. But there is one small problem, and this is the fact that Mercury is making a square to Saturn. You've got Mercury up there in Sagittarius, in a part of your solar chart very connected with career and business. That's fine. You can talk about business. You can think about it. You know what needs to be done. But it is square Neptune, and Neptune is in Pisces. So yeah, I understand Neptune has been in Pisces for a long time, but with Mercury square Neptune, you might confuse everything, and as a result, make big mistakes. You have a capacity for taking something very simple and turning it into something that is as dense as mud. You can do that, and that is not helpful. So you have to think about, what are you doing? Why are you taking something which is fairly simple and just making it far too complicated? Maybe you're engaging too much emotion, perhaps. It's a time when it's difficult to be logical, difficult to be rational. We people are dwelling on their feelings, and I think you are dwelling on their feelings, and you're perhaps relying too much on your feelings. So that's not something you should be doing today. Yes, of course you've got feelings, but you've got to have a little bit of logic there, and perhaps what you need to do is just wait it out. By the end of the day, especially if you're in the Americas, when the moon has moved out of Sagittarius into Capricorn, I think you will be more grounded, and I don't think that your emotions will be such an issue. I think you'll have a better idea about what actually needs to be done, and you'll be in the right frame of mind to actually do it. Okay, so that's what I have to say about the 12 signs. And now I want to look at the I Ching. And as always, I asked a question, and my question was this: what is Tuesday going to be like for people watching this video? So, the first hexagram I got was hexagram number 64, before completion. So this hexagram is about a situation where we are trying to accomplish something, and it feels that we're very close, but we haven't got there yet. The image that the I Ching gives is, certainly the Wilhelm translation gives, is a fox trying to cross some ice, and what it must not do is get its tail wet. The fox can actually be actually swimming across a river, trying to get to the other side, but it's a very small fox and it's a very big river. So the question is, are we going to actually accomplish anything? Is there going to be a mishap? And the bottom line moves, and the fourth line from the bottom moves. So bottom line moving. What that means is the fox gets its tail in the water. So at quite an early stage, I think you might mess up. And you might feel that you just can't deal with the situation. You might feel that you're being dragged down. The I Ching sort of says that the problem of a fox getting its tail wet is that the wet tail drags it down into the bottom, perhaps towards the bottom of a river. But let's not be so dramatic. You've made a mistake here right at the beginning. You're trying to complete something. You're getting closer to the other side, but you do something wrong. And yeah, there is danger. There is a real danger here that you mess things up and that you have to start again if you're lucky. But the fourth line moves. And the fourth line talks about it being a time of struggle. Completing this thing is going to be really hard work, and it will be a struggle, and it may be touch and go at times, and you might feel you're never going to get to the other side of a river. But it does seem that there is a way forward. And if we take those two moving lines, we then transition into a second hexagram. And this second hexagram is hexagram number 41, which is decrease. Now, on the surface, that doesn't sound good, but we have to sort of deconstruct it. What does that mean, decrease? Because, the I Ching it never just tells you what's going to happen. It gives you some advice. So what is the advice here with decrease? Well, the advice here is to give something up. Could be something small. It could actually be our own autonomy. Perhaps we're too keen to be in control of the situation, and maybe by putting ourselves in a weaker position, we will ironically actually become stronger. Now, also thinking about crossing a river. If we're crossing a river and we're in trouble, normally one of the things we should be giving up is our baggage, because our baggage can drag us down, and that's not what we want to happen. So it seems that there's some small sacrifice we have to make in order to be successful, in order to get to the other side. There's something that needs to be given up, some sacrifice, and the I Ching talks about, we give up something and the lower enriches the higher. So by giving something up, we actually gain something, and we gain whatever we need to get to the other side and to complete the task that we find ourselves involved with. Okay, so that's the I Ching, and now I want to do a final look at the Claudine Gay saga. And I wanted to look at two of the people involved in it, who were involved in her, I don't know if a downfall is not quite the right word, because she's still got a job. She hasn't been fired from Harvard, which is kind of a bit strange, isn't it? I mean, if you've got all these plagiarism accusations, you can't really be a professor at Harvard with all these. I mean, okay, I suppose you've got to try to establish whether or not these accusations are true, but it seems pretty bad. It does seem that to some extent you have a career that has been based on plagiarism. So that doesn't sound good for her maintaining her academic position at Harvard. But anyway, let's look at some charts. So the first chart is of Elise Stefanik. I think she's of Wikipedia says she's of Czech and Czechoslovak and Italian origin. I think the main airport in Bratislava is Stefanik. Is called Stefanik. Stefanik is he was a Slovak sort of hero. He was an aviator. He died in a plane crash, I think, in the early 20s or something. I don't know whether she's related in any way to Stefanik. So that's her chart. I don't know her time of birth. She was born on July the 2nd, 1984. And I think she was born in Albany, New York, noon. Now, if you are an American politician, it really helps to be born in early July, obviously. George Bush Jr. was born, I think, on July the 6th. I think there have been a couple of other presidents born quite close to there. Makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, July the 4th, Declaration of Independence. So if you're born close to July the 4th, it's going to make it that much easier to be successful in American politics. So there's her sun in Cancer. In fact, I should probably just quickly compare her chart with the USA's chart. So there's the USA's chart, and let's just put her chart and the USA's chart side by side. We'll put USA's chart in the middle and her chart on the outside. So you can see that the USA has this conjunction between Venus in Cancer, Venus at 3 Cancer, Jupiter at 5 Cancer, Sun at 13 Cancer, Mercury at 24 Cancer. So her Venus, Elise Stefanik's Venus, is at 15 Cancer, conjunct America's Sun, and her Mercury at 22 Cancer is conjunct America's Mercury. So the way she communicates is very helpful, and it would seem that in terms of how we saw her communicate in Congress when she was interrogating the presidents or whatever of, what was it, Harvard and was it MIT and University of Pennsylvania, there you saw her communication on show. And America liked that, at least her constituency liked that. Of course, I do understand that progressives might not have liked that, and I know progressives feel that Claudine Gay has been treated incredibly unfairly, but I don't know, it seemed pretty obvious to me that if you suggest that there may be situations when you can call for the genocide of Jews and you don't universally condemn it and say that you've got to consider the context. I don't know, or she's asking for it, isn't she? But anyway, you can see how Elise Stefanik has been so successful. I mean, she's relatively young. She's going to be 40 next birthday. She's a congresswoman, so she's doing well. So America likes her, or at least the Americans that count like her. And so that is an important part of who she is. So going back to her natal chart, no, that's the USA's natal chart. She has a conjunction between Mars and Saturn in Scorpio. Now, that does give a different side to her. Mars-Saturn conjunctions can be tough. There's a lot of frustration there. They can be... Mars-Saturn conjunctions can actually be quite attacking if they're annoyed about something. Remember, her Mars is in Scorpio. Mars is very strongly placed in Scorpio. Mars rules Scorpio. But that Mars-Saturn conjunction is tough. And the question is, how does she use her Mars-Saturn conjunction? So at this stage, it might be a good idea to compare Elise Stefanik's horoscope with the horoscope of one of the people she was interrogating in Congress. In other words, with the horoscope, with Claudine Gay. So let's do a comparison. We will put, I think we'll put Claudine Gay in the middle, and we'll put Elise Stefanik on the outer wheel. So if you remember Claudine Gay, assuming we've got her birthday right, the English Wikipedia refuses to confirm that she really was born on August the 4th, 1970. But assuming that's the right birthday, many sources, but not totally official sources, come up with this August the 4th, 1970, which I think is Obama was born on August the 4th, 1961. But Claudine Gay, she has a Sun-Mars conjunction at 11 Leo, 11-12 Leo. This is a woman who is very focused on herself. In Leo, I do think it's very arrogant, somewhat arrogant there, very focused on herself, believing she's right. We saw her resignation letter where there was no apology. It was all other people's fault, being in a way a little bit aggressive about it. And I think that's her Sun-Mars conjunction. And we also know, by the way, that sort of academically she worked to get rid of academics or marginalize academics who she disagreed with. I mean, including fellow African American academics. So she does seem like a difficult person and someone who was really fighting for herself and her own interests. I suspect that was her main concern, not Harvard, and she hung on to the presidency as long as she could. But anyway, if we look at that Sun-Mars conjunction in Leo, we notice that Elise Stefanik's Mars-Saturn conjunction here is square her Sun-Mars conjunction. So Elise Stefanik's Mars at 13 Scorpio is square her Sun-Mars at 11-12 Leo. So there's an immediate clash there, a real clash of personalities. So there is Mars in Scorpio, very strong in Scorpio, trying to get under the surface, trying to perhaps undermine someone emotionally, maybe. We couldn't perhaps see it when we saw the film of it, but perhaps that was what was going on. And hitting Mars in Leo having such a high opinion of itself, Sun and Mars having a high opinion of itself, and Mars and Saturn, this Mars-Saturn conjunction, squaring Claudine Gay's the Mars-Saturn conjunction, completely undermining the Sun-Mars conjunction. Of course, it was it was set up in Congress where Elise Stefanik kind of had the power because she was doing the interrogating. It wasn't a situation where Claudine Gay could fight back. It was just the wrong situation. So Sun-Mars had no way of defending itself, and so the Mars-Saturn, Elise Stefanik's Mars-Saturn conjunction was able to demolish Claudine Gay, as well, of course, as the other two presidents. But it was Claudine Gay that got most attention. So that's Elise Stefanik's chart. I mean, I'm not going to go into more detail about it. I really want to look at her chart with reference to the Claudine Gay issue. So let's now look at Christopher Rufo. Now he's this activist, conservative activist who was sort of responsible, I believe, I think he had a co-worker, responsible for bringing to light the plagiarism. So let's look at his horoscope. So here is Christopher Rufo's chart. I don't know what time he was born. I don't know where he was born. It said he spent a lot of time in Sacramento. Because I don't know his time of birth. It doesn't really matter if I've got his place of birth wrong. I don't know whether he was born in Sacramento, but it doesn't really matter. I've just taken noon, August the 26th, 1984, and if I did the chart for Florida or Sacramento or Seattle, it wouldn't make any much difference. Now, the thing about Christopher Rufo is he's got a load of planets in Virgo. Now, the moon probably in Virgo. The moon would have gone into Virgo at about 6 a.m. So if he provided he was born around 6 a.m. or afterwards, he would have, his sun would have, his moon would be in Virgo. So Virgo is about detail, focusing on the detail. You can see how a plagiarism detector, someone who is going out of their way to find plagiarism in his opponents, would help to have a lot of planets in Virgo, up to 4 planets in Virgo. And he was actually born around the time of a new moon in Virgo, and you can see you can see his aggression here because he's got Mars in Sagittarius square the sun and the moon and square Mercury. You've got Uranus up there as well. So this is a very assertive, aggressive campaigner for conservative issues. And with that Virgo, you can see how he's chosen to campaign, at least in this case, by focusing on plagiarism. Now, he was born less than 2 months after Elise Stefanik. So in a way, you've got 2 people of the same generation attacking Claudine Gay. Specifically, in terms, you've got a mini generation which has got Saturn in Scorpio, because in 1984 Saturn was in Scorpio, and you can see that his Saturn was at 1116 Scorpio, whereas Elise Stefanik's Saturn is at 1247 Scorpio. So if we line up Rufo's horoscope with that, or with Claudine Gay, I think this is the one. So we've got Claudine Gay in the middle, and we've got Christopher Rufo on the outside. There's his Saturn, and it's 1116. It's exactly square Claudine Gay's Sun-Mars conjunction, like we had with Elise Stefanik. So both these people, their Saturn was really hammering a really important point in Claudine Gay's chart. And matters are made more difficult with Rufo. I mean, Rufo, I think, was much more aggressive than Elise Stefanik, because then you start to see his Sagittarius planets. So his Sagittarius planets, he had, he and Elise Stefanik are part of the Uranus in Sagittarius mini generation, and so his Uranus was square her moon and her Mercury, and so her Mars was helping. Mars was, so that Mars Uranus conjunction hitting her moon and Mercury. So moon and Mercury, she was moon and Mercury in this case. This is the proud academic. This is the academic who's claiming to do all this original work, who through her hard work she got a prize for her dissertation. Really, really proud. Was proud of it and believed I would have guessed that Moon Mercury believed she was the best. And now she's president of Harvard with that wonderful academic record. And then here comes Christopher Rufo with his Mars Uranus in Sagittarius, square her Moon Mercury conjunction, and also his Mercury is hitting her Mercury. He knew exactly where to hit her because he had Sun Mercury conjunction in Virgo, square Mars Uranus in Sagittarius. Very, very attacking, very aggressive verbally in terms of communication. And he hit that point, Moon Mercury, the Moon Mercury conjunction in Claudine Gay's chart, which was her academic reputation. And he was successful. So these two, Christopher Rufo and Claudine and Elise Stefanik. So just really, really same generation. I mean, there's Elise Stefanik. You can see she's got Uranus in Sagittarius. Her Uranus in Sagittarius was okay, not exactly, but it was hitting Claudine Gay's Mercury. So I think that's just interesting, the way this sort of generational duo of Christopher Rufo and Elise Stefanik, these summer 1984 couple, were able to completely wipe out Claudine Gay. Okay, I found that interesting. I don't know if you found that interesting, but that's all I'm going to say about the subject. Hopefully I won't have to go back to this subject, but you never know. Anyway, yeah, so I do hope you found it interesting. If you enjoyed the video, then I would be grateful if you liked it. And if you're not subscribed, then yeah, feel free to subscribe. And yeah, if you want to buy me a coffee, there is a link in the description. Anyway, thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you again tomorrow.